Russia is increasing its hostility towards Azerbaijan and is starting to hit the country's business interests in Ukraine. On the night of August the 8th, the aggressor country attacked the oil depot of the Azerbaijani oil company SOCAR in the Odessa region with Shaheds. The attack resulted in a fire and damage to a diesel fuel pipeline, writes European Pravda. The fire was quickly contained. According to sources, 4 employees were seriously injured and received emergency medical care. The damage is currently being assessed and emergency restoration work is underway. The publication's sources specify that the oil depot was attacked by 5 drones. The location of the crash of the controlled drones indicates that the SOCAR facility was the target of the Russian drones. Thus, this is already the second targeted attack on critical infrastructure facilities in Ukraine connected to Azerbaijan. Before that, a strike was carried out on the Orlovka gas distribution station near the border with Romania. This station is part of the Trans-Balkan gas pipeline through which it is planned to supply Azerbaijani gas to Ukraine. Azerbaijani media described the Russian attack on the SOCAR oil depot as energy terrorism and began calling Russia a terrorist country. Minval writes that the Kremlin is opening a second front in Ukraine against Azerbaijan. This is an open transition to forceful actions, the legality of which, let's be realistic, is out of the question, the media outlet notes. Earlier, Russian propagandists called the strike on the Orlovka station in Odessa region a signal to Baku. It was carried out after an agreement between Kiev and Baku on the supply of Azerbaijani gas to Ukraine and against the backdrop of a sharp deterioration in relations between Russia and Azerbaijan. Z-bloggers and pro-Kremlin propaganda media called the attack by the Shaheds on the Orlovka gas compressor station in the Odessa region, which is part of the route for the supply of Azerbaijani gas to Ukraine, a signal to Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev. For example, one of the major propaganda media outlets of the aggressor country writes that the Azerbaijani leader chose the wrong route for gas supplies. Other propagandists wrote, the attack on the station was a warning to Aliyev that Azerbaijani gas may not reach Ukraine. Z propagandists openly state that the strike affected the interests of Baku and call for attacks on all Azerbaijani infrastructure in the Odessa region, in particular on Azerbaijani oil products. The host of the propaganda channel 1, Ruslan Ostachko, called the attack on the station a blow to Azerbaijan's game in the interests of the West and claims that the aggressor country intends to stop Baku's attempts to organize supplies bypassing Russia.
The city of Nizhnekamsk in Russia's Tatarstan Republic has been targeted by Ukrainian drone attacks. Footage shared on Telegram channels shows a fixed-wing kamikaze drone striking one of the factories in the industrial zone in the city that is situated about 1,300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. An explosion occurred as a result of the strike. Reports say there were no casualties. Due to the drone attack, temporary flight restrictions have been imposed at airports in Kazan, Nizhnekamsk, and Izhevsk in the Udmurt Republic. Ukrainian drones have repeatedly targeted the so-called Alabuga Special Economic Zone that hosts a factory producing Shahed-type long-range attack drones as well as other reconnaissance drones since its launch in 2022.
Ебет, смотри. Ебать, нихуя он. Сука, блядь,
Упала, моя.
Да ну ебать!
The fighters of the 425th Skala Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces have captured 32 Russian soldiers in one of the settlements. The occupiers, seeing that resistance was futile against the Ukrainian fighters, threw down their weapons and surrendered. The prisoners stated that they had been forced into the Russian army and regretted their decision. The captured occupiers expressed their gratitude to the Ukrainian fighters for sparing their lives and taking them as prisoners.
Лише за один тиждень бійці 425-го полку на різних напрямках взяли в полон 32 окупанта. Тепер вони жаліються, як не хотіли воювати, як командири їх кинули, і як їм страшно.
Я из 8 человек дошел до точки только один. Я видел, как моих друзей разрывало на куски. Они до сих пор мне снятся.
Самое страшное – это смерть, не вернуться домой, не увидеть маму, не увидеть сына.
Я пошел в военкомат подписывать контракт с целью вернуть водительское удостоверение. Сейчас думаю, что лучше бы почтальоном служил, на велосипеде ездил.
Меня на протяжении недели пытали, чтобы я подписал контракт. В это время я находился в СИЗО.
Когда мы сдались в плен, мы не пожалели ни на секунду, то, что мы сделали этот выбор.
Нам говорили за вас, то, что, блядь, вы такие все хуёвые, блядь, там. Как, ну еще я даже не знаю. А вот увидел все своими глазами, по-другому стало.
Из 20 человек. Дошло, может быть, человек 5, ну пусть 10 даже, пусть даже 10, и те 300-е.
Меня обманули, короче, наебали и объебали. Поедешь, Валера, на стройку. Ну, на стройку так на стройку. И вот такая у меня стройка.
Выжило вообще не знаю сколько. Все без вести пропавшие.
Страшно видеть, как ребята погибают мучительной смертью из-за какого-то придурка в Кремле.
За месяц от нашей роты осталось 2 человека.
Спасибо ВСУ и 425-му полку за то, что сохранили жизнь. Глубоко раскаиваюсь в тяжких преступлениях против украинского народа.
Millions of people from all over the world, primarily from Latin America and Africa, are ready to fight for Ukraine, but cannot come to our country on their own. This was stated by serviceman Igor Lutsenko. I am not exaggerating. Millions of people around the world want to fight for Ukraine, Lutsenko emphasized. According to him, these foreigners need Ukraine as a state to organize their arrival, because representatives of Latin America and Africa cannot just come to Ukraine without a visa, without the consent of the European Union. There is no possibility. In addition, there are SBU checks. There are other bureaucratic procedures. That is, these volunteers themselves, who want to fight for Ukraine for various reasons, for absolutely selfish reasons, they want to gain combat experience. All these people cannot come here because we have a bunch of obstacles to this, Lutsenko said. He claims that volunteers are currently collecting funds to bring in foreign volunteers. He is convinced that the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine can issue a corresponding resolution in 15 to 20 minutes, and everything will be ready. More than 8,000 foreign volunteers have reportedly joined the Ukrainian ground forces, with the total number to be likely at least twice as high across all military branches. Kostyantin Melevsky, the Ukrainian military's acting head of the Department for Coordination of Foreigners' Military Service, shared this with the Ukrainian news outlet Hromadski. The number of foreign armed forces volunteers increased from 10 to 150 a month to around 600, which was influenced in part by the fact that our foreign recruitment center has now begun full operations, said Melevsky. South Americans reportedly make up around 40% of foreign soldiers. Detailed information, particularly about which countries have contributed the most volunteers, is kept secret for security reasons. However, the Ukrainian military revealed that a large portion comes from Colombia, with many of them serving in dedicated combat units. One of them includes Ukraine's 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade Assault Unit, comprising military Colombian fighters, in addition to volunteers from Brazil, Italy, Mexico, Peru, and Zimbabwe. Recall, Russia uses foreign mercenaries against Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that his country's troops in the northeast are battling foreign mercenaries recruited by Russia from various countries, vowing to respond. The Ukrainian president visited frontline troops in the Kharkiv region, hearing reports from his warriors that fighters from China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and African countries were on board with Russia. Russia is already known to have been assisted by thousands of North Korean troops in the defense of its Kursk region, and Ukraine had already accused Moscow of recruiting Chinese fighters, a charge denied by Beijing. At the time of reporting, there was no comment from the additional countries accused by Zelensky of joining Russia's war effort.